Now that Wizards of the Coast is in control of the Commander format, they're going to be reevaluating the entire ban list. They're not looking to add to it right now, but they're trying to see if they want to unban cards. So we're going to see which cards, according to us, are most likely to get unbanned.
I'm Mia, and I've been playing a lot of Balatro lately.
I'm BZ. I've been playing a lot of Smash Ultimate Online lately. We're the Nitpicking Nerds, sponsored by Raycons. We love them so much, we take them everywhere, including this video.
With Raycon earbuds, you can take your music and podcasts anywhere, including when we take the cats for a walk. Plus, there are a ton of different color cases and earbuds. These ones are purple and orange, just like us. Bee's is in sunset, and mine is in dreamy clouds.
Yep, they have 32-hour battery lives, and that's multi-point connectivity, so you can have two devices on one pair of earbuds at the same time. And they also have active noise cancellation. We are on planes a large amount of the time, and honestly, these are going to be lifesavers because the noise cancellation on them is pretty crazy.
If you're always on the go like we are, 10 minutes of charging into these will give you 90 minutes of battery life. That's so much time.
I'm someone who always procrastinates charging whatever it is I need charged, so this is probably going to be a huge feature for me specifically.
If you want to help support the channel, go to buyraycon.com/nitpicking today to get 20 to 50% off site-wide. That's right, you'll get up to 50% off everything on Raycon's website when you go to buyraycon.com/nitpicking.
And of course, our next sponsor, CardKingdom.com. That's where you can go to buy all the Magic cards you were going to buy anyway, except when you do it this way, you support the channel, let Card Kingdom know that we sent you, and you get product in a quick and efficient manner.
We're also sponsored by Dragon Shield, best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
If you use the code
NERDS
at checkout, you can save 5% of your real money tax dollars on your entire order. That includes the 25th anniversary Dragon Shield dual mats that are black and silver and super shiny and super awesome.
Moxfield later, not now. Yes, wrong. And we have a Patreon if you want to give us direct money from your pocket. We will give you direct extra content that you can't see on YouTube. So in case you've lived under a rock for the last week and a half and for the beginning of this video, Wizards of the Coast now in control over the Commander format that includes the ban list. They are going to be looking at the ban list and evaluating if they want to take cards off of it. They're not going to be banning cards in this next upcoming change. They're not going to do that. But they are going to be looking and seeing, hey, they're working with the rules committee. They're going to be talking about their philosophies and their goal and vision for the format and saying, what can we unban, if anything? And so I think these cards from the community are what people think are the most likely unbans. We're going to go over what the card does, what cards it might see play with, or commanders it might work with if it gets unbanned. And then at the end, do we think it should be unbanned?
I think Commander's ban list has been around for a while at this point, and there are some cards that might have footing of like getting unbanned. I think the first one is one that people most often think about. It's Coalition Victory. 3 white, blue, black, red, green for a sorcery. You win the game if you control a land of each basic land type and a creature of each color. Why is it banned? Because it wins out of nowhere. It just says you win the game right on a card that you can play at sorcery speed, and if no one has a counter, you just win right there.
Yeah, this is 8 mana, and it either wins you the game or has no effect at all. Kind of funny, kind of a swingy card. I think the rules committee in the past, when it was active, has taken a pretty reasonable stance against the win out of nowhere cards. There is at least one more of those coming up on our list. I think it makes sense that you don't want Commander games to just end out of nowhere with absolutely no build-up. You could say Craterhoof Behemoth is a win out of nowhere card, but I think it maybe falls more in the win out of somewhere category, where, like, 7 creatures in play is what you need with a Craterhoof. You can't just play a Craterhoof on turn 8 with no prior follow-ups and expect to win. So there's a little bit of a difference there. If this card got unbanned, though, I feel like the main commanders you would see it in, you want 5-color commanders that are specifically each color. So, Sisay Weatherlight Captain, you wouldn't really see it there because it doesn't meet the stipulation. But Joda the Unifier, well, if you have a creature of each color, Joda is every color. That's already satisfies that. Now, if you have 2 Triomes or a couple Shocklands and a basic, you're good.
Omnath Locus of All is also a great commander for this because that is a 5-color commander, and you're going to need mana to fix all of the colors in your deck. So being able to have a couple Triomes, a couple Shocks will be able to satisfy those conditions. There's also some cards that will do really well in here. First off, Naked Dryad Boy or Dryad of the Elysian Grove, because all lands will be all land types, which can help satisfy that condition.
Yeah, same exact thing for Prismatic Omen. That's like a weirder, probably a little bit worse card that gets that done for you. I don't even know. You probably want to play Dryad because it has other text, but I don't even know if you want Prismatic Omen. Definitely something people are going to play alongside Coalition Victory, but it's just, In the 5-color mana bases, it's so easy to get a land of each basic land type with a Triome and a Shock Land or whatever. Fetch lands make this very, OP, very trivial. So if we wanted to talk about do we think Coalition Victory should be unbanned, I know it would see play alongside all of these cards, and it would be pretty hard to stop. If I have, Prismatic Omen and 2 creatures and a Joda and all my lands are the right colors, you have to counter Coalition Victory or you die to it. In the past, I have been very much on the side of just unban this stupid card and Rule 0 will sort it out. Now I think I'm more on the side of let's unban it because I think that Rule 0 will sort it out.
I think that this card is not as scary as it used to be. I think there are a lot faster ways to win, and I'm trying to think of like the fastest way you can win with Coalition Victory. You ramp out a few creatures, you have your commander, and if you can get some sort of like Triome situation, you can put this out. That's still slower than some of the other win cons we have, like, Thassa's Oracle, Demonic Consultation, or some other things that we might have lower in this list. And I think that overall, I think that this can be unbanned without a lot of consequence, while also just putting the weight on Rule 0. I don't want to put too much weight on Rule 0 to protect newer players and that sort of thing, but I think that since this is an 8-mana sorcery, this isn't exactly coming out of nowhere.
Well, I think it's less of a question of is this card good? This card is not going to see any CDH play, but it's more of a question of is this card fun? Is this like a fun thing that you want to see? Every 5-color deck's going to probably try to do this.
Yeah, I think that 5-color decks are already... I don't think it's the worst. I feel like it's the one, like, the holy grail that people have been, like, hoping to get unbanned for a while. I wouldn't be mad at this. I feel like I get more mad at, like, Approach of the Second Sun than this.
I think I would like for this card to be unbanned because I think unbans are generally good if we can get it going. If we can just, shrink the ban list a little bit and try to make it so that it's only the, like, worst offenders. But I could see this being a little annoying. I think what would happen is I would be happy to have it unbanned, and then I would look at 5-color decks differently, and I would really start killing all of the Wooburg commanders that I see. So, I'm way more split on this than I was. I feel like it could be unbanned, but can you unban this card and then reban it if it's a mistake? That looks pretty bad, right?
I think it does. I think that I don't think I'd be mad either way because, like, look, Ramos is safe, right? So
yeah, he's not gonna play Coalition Victory in Ramos.
Yeah, so I'm pretty okay with it personally, but I think either way, I'm pretty split too because I think it easily could be a mistake, but also I think that this is also kind of a janky-ish win con, so I could also see it being like a harder to get to than just like flooding a field and then putting out Crater Hoof, for instance.
Yeah, if I'm like, you were watching the wheels turn in like real time right now because I haven't gotten a ton of chance to think about specifically this card and where I stand on it lately. I almost just want to keep it banned now. I just went the whole way. Like, I don't even know if we should unban this card. The more I think about it, the more I think about like, you just have to pass the test of does the 5-color deck have Coalition Victory and is the game over right now? And maybe if now Coalition Victory existing changes the way you play against all 5-color decks in a way that the 5-color players are having less fun because their commander's staying in play less, even if they don't play Coalition Victory, maybe that's just annoying.
I think that there are certain cards that are just unfun in general, though, that are win cons. As I mentioned earlier, Approach of the Second Sun is one of those. Like, are you worried about that? Like the blue-white deck that draws cards a lot, are you going to be worried about Approach of the Second Sun? Are you going to play differently against those?
Maybe. I mean, what if Approach of the Second Sun just said, forget the first part, you just win? I mean, if you hate that, if you hate a delayed 7-turn to win, what if it was just one more mana and they win the game right now?
I mean, it's not just 7 turns, it's 7 cards worth, and that's not, if you have something that's just like a Rhystic Study or something, that could draw you into it within 1 turn, depending on what your opponents cast. I'm pretty split on this too. I would say that I'm like on the side of unbanning it, but not heavily, like maybe like a 60 to unban, 40 to leave banned.
Yeah, it's fun to say the cards should be unbanned, but as we're sort of dissecting this one, I don't really have any strong feelings to unban it anymore. You could say that unbanning it would sort things out, but, Pat Beasy from 5 minutes ago is wrong. We definitely have more fleshed out thoughts on the next card, Gifts Ungiven. 3 to blue for an instant. Search your library for up to 4 cards with different names and reveal them. Target opponent chooses 2 of those cards, put the chosen cards into your graveyard and the rest into your hand, then shuffle. Why is this card banned? Mostly because the rules committee is really not a big fan of tutors. Tutors reverse diversity and they make games a little bit more homogenized. This is a lot of tutors at once. It is 4 tutors. It's also similar to a card that is legal right now, Intuition, which is the same card, but it searches for 3, and then you choose to put 2 into the graveyard and put 1 into your hand.
See, that's actually funny that you mentioned that, because I actually got Intuition played against me in the CEDH tournament that we were just playing.
That's not surprising, because Intuition and Gifts Ungiven are both pretty good cards.
Yeah, and I think that with the dense amount of tutors that in the format, I mean, maybe we're just like skipping to my thoughts at the moment.
We can.
But I think that if Intuition is legal, then Gifts Ungiven should be kind of legal too, because they are so similar, and it kind of it's just fulfilling the same role. And then we also have tutors that cost less or that are just as efficient, maybe even more efficient. If you want something in the graveyard, you'll be entombing it. You could be unmarked graving it. You could vamp toot it to the top of your library if you want it in your hand. I feel like 4 mana, and even though 4 mana for 4 cards, that's a very good rate. I also feel that it's a little bit more work to go through, and also if Intuition is legal, why wouldn't this be legal?
The other thing too is that there's a fair version of this card. We can't just, this isn't a tournament scene where we go, Gifts Ungiven's too good because it enables this deck. It's like EDH just doesn't care about that. CEDH is just a byproduct of EDH. It exists for people who want to play whatever commander is at the highest level. So they're not going to, we know that the Wizards isn't really going to ban too much with CEDH in mind, or unban too much with CEDH in mind. This is a pretty strong card, but the fair version of this card, it's kind of cool, because if I just go find my 4 best cards right now, an opponent chooses 2 of them that I get. So I get those 2 cards. It's not the best cards, literally, because they're going to put the best cards in the graveyard. And it's I think this card is kind of interesting. I don't know what makes this card that much scarier or that much more annoying than a Demonic Tutor or a Vampiric Tutor, which seem to sort themselves out in the Rule 0 discussion. We always ask, that's some of the stuff we ask, is are you playing fast mana, are you playing tutors, and are you playing combos? And if you're playing tutors, that Gifts Ungiven falls into that. So I either know what I'm getting ahead of time because I'm asking about this thing, or it's a card that just sorts itself out into the higher power decks, if it even makes it there, and players use it responsibly. I don't think this is a busted card. You go get 4 dinosaurs with your Gifts Ungiven, that feels pretty cool. I feel like this one is a pretty easy unban for me.
I think this is unbanned too. I feel like also tutors are so applicable to the deck that you're playing in them, right? You could jam a Demonic Tutor in a precon, and then it's still the best card in the precon, which might be Soul Ring, obviously.
That's true, yeah.
But, if you jam a Gifts Ungiven into, I don't know, the Merfolk precon from the Clue, Murderers at Karlov Manor, what are the best cards in there? It's very different than jamming a tutor into, and it just kind of sorts itself out, because that is the deck you're playing. It's the shell that you're putting it into.
Yeah, I don't know if we can go, I understand that tutors reduce diversity, and maybe a lot of decks would play Gifts Ungiven, but I don't see how we can take a firm stance against every tutor with the commander ban list. And this one just feels like it's not anything special, especially when we have almost the exact same card that enables all the same nonsense in Intuition. Now, some of the cards you're going to see if Gifts Ungiven gets unbanned, there's a couple wombo combos you can do with it. If you go get a flashback card, then your opponents have no choice but to either put the flashback card in your hand, which lets you cast it, like on Burial Rites, to reanimate whatever you tutored for, or put the flashback card in the graveyard to then flash it back. The other thing you can do is you don't have to find 4 cards with Gifts Ungiven. You can find 2 cards. If I find on Burial Rites and some giant monster like an Elishnorn or a Toxrill, then I can go end step, Gifts Ungiven, find only 2. You put them both in the graveyard because you have to. Then flashback on Burial Rites, get back Toxrill or whatever monster. So it definitely has some added utility there. But even then, that's double Entomb, basically. Yeah. And double Entomb is okay for 4.
Yeah, I was gonna say 4 mana for double Entomb in blue. I feel like that's still a couple hoops you need to jump through at that point. So I think that Gifts Ungiven can be unbanned.
Let's get it. Welcome back to the format, Gifts Ungiven. We'll say it first. We'll be the first to welcome you back. Also, Savine's Reclamation. You're going to be able to see that. It's got flashback. It can get back 2 things. There's a little bit of shenanigans you can pull there. I would love to see Gifts Ungiven back in the format. I think there's no issue really with gifts.
I think so too. Plus, I think it would give a more affordable tutor. I don't know if it would stay affordable considering it is less than $1 at the moment. But I think that having access to more affordable tutors might get people more comfortable with that in the format. You know what I mean?
I mean, it has been printed a handful of times for whatever reason, despite being banned pretty much the whole time. That this keeps getting reprinted. But maybe it would be it have to be less than 20, right?
I think so. I mean, it would be less than demonic tutor, and it would be less than vampiric. I think so.
I feel like it would be. It's always been printed at rare. So let's get Gibson Given back. I think even if this card is slightly problematic in that it is a tutor, tutors tend to sort themselves out a little bit.
Yeah, I think so too. The next one is my boy Primetime, Primeval Titan, 4 green for a 6/6 with trample. Whenever he enters or attacks, you can search your library for up to 2 land cards, any lands, put them onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Why is it banned? Because it tutors your best land. It snowballs immediately, especially if you can give it haste, and it just dominates the attention of everyone on the board because it's this big threat that can swing in for a ton of damage and also just repeatedly get your best lands over and over.
Yeah, it does have a little bit of that tutor, so you're going to see the same lands every time. Even though Gibson Given may get different cards in different scenarios, Primetime's probably always going to get the same couple lands. So there's a little bit less, diversity there, especially when it's going to be Field of the Dead, probably, or Valakut, or Cabal Coffers, or Nykthos, those types of things. It definitely dominates attention in the sense that players want to clone it or copy it or steal it because it's just such a powerful card. I think if Primetime got unbanned, you're going to see it alongside like Tatiova, Benthic Druid, because every landfall deck that plays green and isn't some end of the game on turn 6 combo deck factually will play Primeval Titan if it got unbanned.
Xenagos God of Revels is also another home for it because that will give it haste immediately and make it very, very big. So you can swing in with that trample damage and then also get 4 lands when it enters the battlefield, like on that turn.
Yeah, and the lands are not really something that can be interacted with, so it's going to bolster your board. If you attack with a haste Primetime and you go get Field of the Dead and your 3 next best lands, including maybe a way to destroy someone else's land, and get 4 zombies off of that, even if they kill Primeval Titan, you're like, I don't care. It cost 6 and it just got me 4. It just got me 4 lands.
I do agree that it is a big attention grabber. I feel like people would be cloning it. It will often be one of the best things or the best thing on the field. But also, I think that it's one of those like fun cards, and I feel like Primetime, sorry buddy, it's been a little bit outclassed by some of the other things that have come out lately just due to power creep. It'll be powerful, but I don't think it'll be too powerful.
Yeah, it definitely will increase the rate at which you see some of the less fun lands in the format, like Field of the Dead, Cabal Coffers, Nykthos, Valakut. The lands that people spam, just like who would even do that? It just gets so
Awful
old.
people.
It just gets so old after a
Boring.
while. Yeah,
Get them out of here. Kill them.
I think Primetime more so than Gifts might make games feel a little samey. It's definitely a card that could be unbanned from like a power standpoint, but I'm just trying to think, because we've talked a lot about bans on the channel in the past, and now they feel, unbans, and now they feel more likely than ever, and we feel closer than ever before, and I'm really trying to think, Primetime, huh? Do I want to see Primetime all the time? I don't know. I feel like I'm a maybe. I would not cry. I think it would be less problematic than Coalition Victory if it was unbanned.
Yeah, I am on the side of free Primetime. I think that I'm thinking from a purely power standpoint of it is not too powerful for the format because I think there are much more powerful things that have been printed lately.
Well, yeah, but also the Commander ban list really has nothing to do with power.
Yeah.
It's all about like fun and the like diversity of the format, health of the format.
I also think that there is also a case to be made for playing more single target land destruction at that point, I think that people should be doing that to begin with when they're playing like the Ghost Quarters, the demo fields, not just the 1-for-1s like Strip Mine and that sort of thing.
That is good, but there is the other thing to consider about the rule, at least the rules committee. This is not Wizards. This was the rules committee document. They were saying that requiring specific answers when deck building is a hallmark of cards that do or have been banned, of like, oh, you have to play land destruction because Primetime's a thing.
I mean, couldn't you just say that for anything like Field of the Dead then? It's like, oh, well, Nykthos is a thing in this format, which Primetime obviously can get, and Field of the Dead and all this, shouldn't you just be playing some sort of single target land destruction because there are all these rampant lands running around?
Well, those are knocks against the card. Like, those are reasons in the pros column for banning Field of the Dead. Like, well, it's definitely, those are the toxic play patterns that can create. Not that it should be banned because of that, but it's definitely a knock against Field of the Dead that you can't answer it if you don't play land destruction.
Well, what I'm saying is, if you're going to put Primetime up in this thing of like, oh, you need removal or certain types of removal to deal with it, you could say that for a bunch of things that should be banned, but if they're not banned and they're not thinking about bans, then shouldn't we unban some other things that also fall into that same category?
As tricky as the line between Rule 0, doing heavy lifting for the format and like all these problematic cards that need weird specific answers that they can't all get banned is definitely tricky. 6 mana though, Primetime is 6 mana, and it's not like this is a play that's going to warp the game starting on turn 1, 2, 3 like Jewel Lotus and Mana Crypt were. But, you know, when the game gets to turn 6 and then somebody plays a ramp spell, how much sooner is the game going to end, right? Like maybe it's not really taking games from ending on turn 8 and making them end on turn 7. I think it's just a really powerful play that you can make that definitely swings the game a little bit in your favor. When I think about it like that, you know, I do think every green deck's going to play Primetime, though. It's like every green deck's going to play it. It's not like Coalition Victory, though, where it's just going to end the game on the spot. I don't know. I'm pretty mixed. I feel like I'm like 51% unbanned, 49% leave ban.
Yeah, I feel like with a lot of cards on here, I am not 100% unbanned, no matter how much I say free my boy Primetime.
Gifts, though, I think we could do.
I think gifts is like 99, you know, the 1% being like diversity, that sort of thing. But I think that Primetime is like, 65% unban it or 70% unban it, and then like 35% keep or 30% keep it banned. You know, something around those percentages.
Players would like lose it. They would be. I feel like most people would be happy.
Yeah, I think I would be happy overall. I could see why people would think to keep it banned, but I think I'm more on the side of unban it.
They do also have the brackets system coming out where they say this is a bracket 4 card, bracket 3, bracket 2, bracket 1. You could unban Primetime and put it in a bracket 3 or something, you know, where you say, hey, this is a really powerful card.
I mean, this is a side note about brackets. I think that they're going to put every card in a bracket, and that's good in theory, but I feel like people are going to cherry pick that. You know what I mean? Like, people are going to be like, okay, well, my deck has all, you know, mostly 4s, except for like this, and this. And like, you know, they'll remember like 10 cards, you know, like the Soul Rings, the whatever, the big staples are like the most powerful cards in their deck. And then everything else will kind of like fall to the wayside. You know what I mean?
I'm hopeful for brackets. I think it might be a better way to determine Rule 0, you know, shortcuttery than the power levels 1 through 10. So as long as it's better than that, I'm good. But nothing gets better than Moxwell.com, because that's the best way for you to build a deck, whether or not you're playing with brackets in Rule 0, or Primetime is unbanned, or Gifts is unbanned, or Coalition Victory stays banned. None of it matters, because Moxfield is going to be there for you through it all.
Mox will actually tell you if the cards in your deck are banned. If you try to add Dockside in your deck right now, it will have the little red on it and will say this is banned or something like that. It will tell you, because Moxfield is awesome and we love you guys. But the next card is still banned, and we wonder whether it will get unbanned. It's Flash. 1 in a blue for an instant. You may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. If you do, sack it unless you pay its mana cost reduced by 2. This is banned because of CEDH. If you guys remember back in the day of Flash Hulk, that was a big win con that went real fast.
Which is weird. Very, very weird. You know, I'm going to give a big I'm sorry to all of our CDH buddies before we give these takes. This card, as far as I can tell, was banned entirely to appease the CEDH format, which is something that the Rules Committee has never before or since cared about at all. They don't really make bans for CEDH. That doesn't really fit their philosophy or goals. So when this was banned, I was just like, huh? Because I can tell you right now, Casual Commander is impacted in almost no way at all by whether Flash is legal or not. Pretty much nothing. Almost zero impact. So if you want to flash forward to our opinion on this, this is the easiest unban in the history of unbans in terms of, will this negatively impact casual play? The answer is no. Flash is like the most random, sweatiest card that goes, you know, absolute ham sandwich with like 3 magic cards and nothing else.
Honestly, I played Casual Commander up until my first game of CEDH, and it was like right before Flash got banned, and my friend was playing Thrasios Tymna and had a Hulk pile with Flash in it, and that was the first time I ever even heard of the card, and I had played many games of Commander prior to that. It just never really approached the table. So I also agree with Beezy, because if you're not trying to win on turn 1 or 2, and, you know, have some sort of like Hulk pile or like a Rector, you know, go get your combo and win like Beezy often does with Hulk pile, I think that this is just not really finding itself at tables most of the time.
Yeah, this card is a joke in terms of casual play, and it's very likely, it's possible. I know Wizards has at least a few consultants, or they will, from the CEDH format. I know Jim from Spike Feeders, who was on the Rules Committee, is still working with them too. So they might have insight to the CDH format and they might not want to screw with it too much. This card destroys like CDH metas. It kind of like defines the format in a way that if it was legal, that's a real problem for everyone, but it's not a problem for the people that Commander is actually like actively curated for, which is like strangers playing with no rule 0 at an LGS. Like, should this card be banned for them? Definitely not. The cards you'll see around Flash, there's very few. Protean Hulk is probably one of the main ones because it dies. It has a really good dies trigger, and Flash only costs 2 mana to cheat the thing out and then kills it right away because you don't pay the mana cost. That part's fake. And so you go Flash, sacrifice my Protean Hulk, find either a value pile to get, draw a few cards, get a sack outlet and put my thing in play, or you win the game if you're playing basically CDH and nothing else. There's also Academy Rector. When it dies, you go find any enchantment. So you could turn Flash and a Rector into 2 mana Omniscience or something like that. And really, after that, I'm struggling to find cards that are like that crazy with Flash. You could do like Gulta Stampede Tyrant, put your entire hand in play on turn 2. That's kind of cool.
I mean, that is really cool. I would try and play that at least once or twice, but I feel like if I was playing casual, I would get kind of bored of Flash pretty easily. Like, okay, I guess I win now. It's like I dumped my entire hand or I did the Hulk combo.
Yeah, and this is a bracket 4 card too, for sure. So this is one of the cards that you might ask about in terms. It's like right up there with fast mana and combos and stuff. It's combo-esque, honestly.
I think that overall Flash is. It could be unbanned, as we mentioned earlier.
Sorry, CDH players, but it has no, it's the easiest unban for us casuals. Next up, we have a Biorhythm. 6 green for a sorcery. Each player's life total becomes the number of creatures they control. This is another win out of nowhere card, or at least it can be. Generally speaking, I would say that most players have 10 or less creatures in play, and that's probably going to mean that players' life totals are going to become 10 or less. And you, as the green deck, probably, or at least you're striving to have the most number of creatures in play. How do you feel about Biorhythm?
We're just jumping right to the feelings.
Yeah.
I think that this is lower on my unbanned. Like, I don't want this unbanned. I think this is such a feels bad. I think that it's, in general, it's a less feels bad, or it's more feels bad than Coalition Victory, because at least with Coalition Victory, it's like that person wins and everyone else loses. This is like, ooh, this person becomes 1, and this person, this other person removed their creature last turn and they've been mana screwed, so they just lose on the spot, and then the other person who has a bunch of elves or something just has like 40 life at that point. We haven't mentioned yet, but some of the decks that this goes in is one that I would probably play it in is Lathril, Blade of the Elves. That just spits out elves left and right, and I can make a board of 20 or 30 in a couple turns, honestly.
And the other thing about Biorhythm that you would want to build around is, well, I'd want to ensure my opponents have 0 creatures, and then I literally win out of nowhere. So like Kindred Dominance in the Elf deck, if you can generate a lot of mana, you go Kindred Dominance or some similar wipe, and then Biorhythm, and the game is actually over. How many mana did you spend at that point? 15 plus have a couple creatures in play. I think the other thing you might do is Queen Alanal of Rudak or some similar green-white tokens commander, because then you can play things like Hour of Reckoning. You convoke with all your creatures, blow everything up. Then you play Biorhythm. Nobody else has tokens, and they just lose the game. Biorhythm, like you said, definitely can feel less like a win out of nowhere and more like a one person loses out of nowhere, and then everybody else is at 2 or 5. And the person who cast it is at 15.
Yeah, I think that overall, this is a lot feeling worse. I also think that, like, in green-white, it's a little bit easier to do because you could do just some sort of, like, vanquish the horde, like, destroy all creatures, and then you have some sort of, like, not Teferi's Protection, but just let them, like, make everything indestructible, like some flawless maneuver, that's only a few mana, and then you just play your, Biorhythm, and then you just win. That's even less mana that you spend right there.
Or if you just have any creature that dies into a creature, you play board wipe plus Biorhythm. Also, you could just play board wipe Biorhythm. Like, you could do that. That's definitely a thing that if Biorhythm was legal, people would try to do. Is like, haha, the game's a tie now. That's probably, that's annoying for sure. Whether or not this card should be unbanned, forcing ties, not my favorite part of Commander, not playing 45 minutes and then having no outcome. I think I'm more on the side of unbanning Biorhythm.
Really?
Though. I think if we have absolute nonsense like Worldfire legal, where if you play a Worldfire, somebody, very likely all or most players just lose. It takes your entire life total, negates it. Whatever game we were playing before is now about the fact that you're at 5 life. I do feel like this is another card that would not see very much play, just in general. I don't think it's like, it's not a card that I would gravitate towards even for like a power standpoint. It kind of just feels like a meme or like an interesting payoff, because I don't think, if you're elves, I think playing Kindred Dominance into Biorhythm is like, cool. You could have played Craterhoof and just killed me that way. Like, this is fine. That feels like right around this jank 100 mana turn 25 payoff that we were talking about.
It's like, how many hoops do you have to jump through to win the game at that point? There are sweatier plays to get. I definitely understand your point in that. I definitely think that this should be banned, but also I think Worldfire should be banned, and I don't understand why they unbanned it. I think that overall this like negation of who cares how the game went is kind of a little, doesn't feel that great. And I know I said Coalition Victory should be unbanned, but also like I also said that was kind of, half and half for me. I think that this falls into the closer to me to the side of like Sway of the Stars, where it's like nothing really mattered for the most part, especially if you can force a tie. That really like grinds my gears so badly.
The Divine, what is it, like the Divine Visit, not Divine Reckoning or Divine Intervention. That's the card that literally all it does is make the game a tie. I hate that card. This is interesting. I think your take is also fair, where either we have none of the cards legal that totally, warp life totals and stuff, or we have all of them legal. I think maybe I'm on the side of all of them legal just based on how many games I've played and how little I've seen Worldfire. I've seen it 0 times since it got unbanned. I feel like this would be in the same thing where it's like 1 in 1,000 games, somebody's like, I got my Biorhythm deck, and you're like, all right, cool. I don't think it would get that old.
Yeah, I think that if I could guarantee, like, I don't think maybe I would see it that much. Maybe I am more on the side of unbanned now, because I haven't seen Worldfire in like a very long time. I saw it while it was banned, and I was like, by the way, that's banned. And then it became unbanned, and it didn't matter anymore because the same people were still playing it.
Yeah, like I feel like Biorhythm is always the same level of banned. It's like that with Worldfire. Like, people are playing it for the memes, and I don't care, or no one's playing it because it's not very good and it's not very fun. So it feels like one of those cards that rides the line in that gray area, like Armageddon. Like, do we have to ban Armageddon? I don't know. If we want a very small ban list, no, we don't have to ban Armageddon. And I think Biorhythm just get right in there in that group.
Yeah, I think this card is not fun, but also I think I would be on the side of unbanning certain things to make room for having like a ban list that has like more powerful cards to protect like newer people. So I would rather keep this unbanned than like certain other cards that are still banned.
All right, next up is my vote for most confusing card on the ban list. Mia, what do we got?
This is Panoptic Mirror, 5 mana for an artifact. You can imprint a card by paying X and tapping it. You can exile an instant or sorcery with mana value X from your hand. At the beginning of your upkeep, you can copy a card exiled with it. If you do, you can cast the copy without paying its mana cost. This allows combos if you can like untap certain things and just cast it without paying its mana cost. This is just a combo machine.
Right, the main thing, the only card that's really worth talking about with Panoptic Mirror, because it is cool, you can do like an Isochron Scepter and get a spell every turn. The reason this is banned is because if you play Panoptic Mirror and then, you pass the turn, and then on the end step before your turn, you pay 5 mana, again, imprint, Time Warp, upkeep, Time Warp for free, which now repeats every upkeep and you get infinite turns. I have a few questions. What? Why? How? Who cares? I don't understand. I will never understand Panoptic Mirror being banned. I don't understand. It is, at best, a 2-card, 10-mana combo that requires you to survive an entire turn with the combo, or at least half of the combo, the problematic part, the Panoptic Mirror, in play the entire time as an artifact. I don't get why. What about this 2-card combo necessitates Panoptic Mirror being banned, but not Kiki Jiki or Mikaeus the Unhallowed or Walking Ballista or any number of other equally infinite, equally deadly 2-card combos?
Look, I'm just going to say it right here. I've gotten Nexus of Fate Infinite turned already, and it's been less mana and less setup than Panoptic Mirror.
That's a 1-card combo.
Yeah, so I don't get why we need to ban Panoptic Mirror for Time Warp Sins when Nexus of Fate is still legal and you could do that for less mana. I'm just saying.
Time Warps are generally already kind of in the taboo zone. Maybe they're bracket 4 cards where they're kind of unfun, and use them sparingly if at all. Or in the higher power stuff, totally fine if you want to play a higher power game. That's what the brackets are going to be for, is saying, hey, I've got a lot of bracket 4 cards. I'm playing Expropriate, Time Warp, blah, 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 Time Stretch. People go, okay, noted. I'm going to pull out this deck. I'm going to put my budget deck away. Panoptic Mirror, just the fact that it's not even like a reasonable rate, maybe if you didn't have to pay to imprint and it was only a 5 mana investment, it's like 10 mana. It's 100,000 mana. I win the game, A plus B. I don't see how this in any way to me stands out from any other number of 2-card end the game unfun thingies.
As I mentioned earlier in this video, I think that some of these bans were from the ancient relic times of Commander, back when precons had 40 basic lands for 3-color commanders, and that this is a card that has just been outclassed by other win cons, and if I'm trying to combo off, I'm not trying to pay 10 mana to do it. That is too long. If I'm trying to combo win, I'm trying to do it by turn like 5 or something.
It's great, because if you unban Panoptic Mirror, the combo players don't care, and the casual players don't care. And it sees the same amount of play as it has been. But you just get to say that there's one less card ban, and it's that much less confusing for new people. Yeah, definitely Panoptic Mirror. If I had to unban one card, easiest decision of my life.
Yeah, I think Panoptic Mirror is an easy unban for me too.
I hope, actually now at this point, I'm hoping Wizards of the Coast unbans it in their next change. I think that would curry some goodwill. If they're looking to get people on their side and let people know that the Commander format's in the right hands, a couple unbans might be the way to go. Panoptic Mirror, Wizards, if you're watching, easiest unban ever. Easiest goodwill you've ever got.
That's an easy one, too. The next one is one that's a little bit tougher to talk about, though. It's Lutri the Spellchaser. 1 and hybrid blue-red for 3/2 with Companion. Each non-land card in your deck has a different name, which is Commander's,
That's our thing.
Yeah. So when it enters, if you cast it, copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You can choose new targets for the copy. Why is it banned? Because it's just free to include in every single deck that can run blue and red cards. It's bad for diversity because the companion cost, the cost for it is something that we already have to do as deck builders to begin with.
Yeah, we want to talk about, diversity in if you unban Primeval Titan, 80%, or let's say more likely 50% of green decks are going to play Primeval Titan. If you unban Gifts Ungiven, 55% of blue decks are going to play Gifts Ungiven, or 25% are going to play Gifts Ungiven. If you unban Lutri, spoiler alert for our opinion, 65% or whatever, 50% of all Commander decks are going to have Lutri, not in the deck, in the Companion Zone. Every deck is just going to have it because there's no downside to having it. So why wouldn't you have it? And it just sort of, for me, would be a huge blow to format diversity. And even from an outside looking in, hey, what format are you guys playing? Oh, we're playing Commander. You've got a mono green Commander, an Izzet Commander with Lutri, a 5-color Commander with Lutri, and a 3-color Miram Dragon deck with Lutri. And I look at that and I go, oh, is this card really good? And everybody goes, not really.
It's just free.
And it's oh, okay.
We made a video a little bit earlier, before all these bans and unbans we're talking about cards that we would keep banned if we had to negate the entire ban list and only ban 10 cards from scratch. And Lutri was on both of ours because of the fact that it's such a free roll. I think that is this controversial? If Commander had unbanned Lutri would be the new Sol Ring, the new face of the Commander, you know, because it would just be free in every single deck that can run it, and a lot of decks run Izzet Plus.
Yeah, Izzet Plus. It's not just Izzet or 5-color, it's every single combination that contains blue and red. This card adds nothing. I think it's such an easy ban. It's on the level, for me, of anti-cards where it just doesn't fit in with what we're doing, or conspiracy cards. It just doesn't work. It's not a thing that I think they could ever even consider unbanning. It is, like we said, if you watch that video, maybe we'll link to it after this. If I could only ban 10 cards in Commander and everyone had to figure everything else out, I would still ban Lutri.
Yeah, I think that it wasn't made for Commander.
Right.
And it is so obviously not made for Commander that we should keep it away from Commander.
It's so made for Commander that it's not, because
it's so obviously not.
Right, it's so perfect for Commander that you can never have it that level of thing. All right, let's talk about a Commander though that people think has been he's been in jail for a long time. Is it time to free our boy Golos Tireless Pilgrim? He is a 5-mana 3/5 artifact creature. When he enters the battlefield, search your library for a land card. Put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. You can also pay 2 white, blue, black, red, green, and exile the top 3 cards of your library, and you can cast them this turn. play them this turn, so lands count, without paying their mana costs. Golos was at one point, I believe, it's getting, sorry, Golos, memory is fading. Time erodes everything. I think he was the most popular commander. And out of nowhere, I will say, the rules committee banned him. Nobody saw that coming at all. They thought that he was a pretty big blow to format diversity, being a 5-color commander that was just good stuff, and B, a tutor on a stick.
Yeah, I think that I didn't play too much with Golos. I was like kind of taking a break from Commander at that point, so I didn't see too much, so maybe my opinion's a little bit limited on that. I think that there are some 5-color good stuff things just hanging around at that point. They printed Joda after they printed Golos, and while Golos is more powerful because it's tutors and then playing stuff for free, I also think that the amount of thought you need to build Golos is a very similar lack of amount of thought that you need to build like Joda, where it's just like, oh, you could just put in good stuff. Oh, you could just put in legendary good stuff. Like the amount is not like the hurdle is not that much farther. Or like Kenrith, it's like, oh, 5-color good stuff. Kenrith does a little bit of everything. Oh, you want to do something with like lowering the activated abilities to do that like you do with Golos? Okay, the same cards work with Kenrith. Like, I don't know. I feel like it's just so similar. I don't think you really need to.
I don't know. I feel like banning the most popular commander, I don't know what that necessarily does for format diversity. I think Golos also wasn't just, most popular guy. He was also like the poster child for jank. He was tying together some of the most hideous brews that you've ever seen. Like, this is my mono black, but all of the hybrid cards devotion deck, and I can play Golos as my commander. It's like, this is my insert worst land you've ever seen deck that I go tutor for. I think he was the de facto Mace's End commander at the time because he always would find your boy or some of the gates that you were missing out on. Golos, I feel like if he came back, not much would change about the format. And so I think that maybe that means we can just bring our boy back. I don't know. I've never had an unfun experience playing against Golos. It was never something I even thought about. Big spells go burr is always an archetype. There's a different Joda, the 4-mana one that says you can just pay Wooburg instead of cast the mana value of your spells. You could do that. I don't think it's stopping anyone from LOLing, expropriates into play if that's what the game they want to go for is. That's something that maybe is a Rule 0 discussion.
I mean, I also think that how often do you see 4-mana Joda? I feel like when I first started playing Commander, 4-mana Joda was like way more prevalent than it is now, but there are just more powerful things. And I think the same thing with Golos, because if you want to play jank, you might be playing something else. Or, I completely agree when you were like, Golos tied all the jank decks together. Joda kind of tied all those jank decks together too. But if you want to play more powerful, you're going to be playing something else. And Golos, just because he can tie a lot of things together because of good stuff doesn't mean he's powerful or great or that the deck itself is powerful or great.
Yeah, I don't know, man. The most popular commander, there always has to be a most popular commander, and you always could ban the most popular commander. The logic would always be the same, right? I'm increasing format diversity by banning the most popular commander. That's never not true. So I don't know. I feel like you either have to keep taking stabs at it, or if they somehow had some kind of data, which I doubt, because Commander is like pretty nebulous, that Golos was this much of a hamper on the format. I think we could Golos. If we're up to us, I think we might be, pardoning you.
I think Golos could get unbanned. My question though, I'm not asking directly the rules committee /WotC or whatever, but I guess my question is that I think the first biggest commander right now, or the most popular one, is like Yuriko, right? I think it's Yuriko.
Let's look it up.
Just looked it up. It's actually Atraxa. Yuriko's number 3. But my question is that like if Kenrith rose to the ranks of 5-color good stuff, would it be also like shot down because it hurt format diversity? That really makes me wonder, because like Atraxa can fall into a lot of like things too, whether that's poison or counters or energy or whatever, like so many things that you can put into this like proliferate kind of shell, and it's 4 colors. If it had that 5th color, would it also be shot down is my question.
Or I'm trying to remember, because I cannot remember how many commander decks on like EDH Rec that there were for Golos. I know it was a pretty high number, but is that like, is there a bar that when we hit that, it's like, oops, you saw too much play? Or is it just like, let the chips fall? And if a commander is extremely like unfun or toxic, like perhaps a Nadu, which I don't agree with the ban of in terms of time spent deliberating on it. But, like Nadu, that's a very toxic, unfun commander. It dominates the game in terms of time equity. That card, get him out of here. Whether or not it's the most popular commander. I don't know. Definitely some food for thought. I think maybe we would lean towards unbanning Golos.
I think so too. I think I want to see formats like kind of flourish with Golos in there. And I also think people would not be rushing to, I think the people who had Golos decks might be rushing to rebuild them, but I think there's so many other commanders running around that I don't think people would be rushing like in droves to build a Golos deck at that point.
I can also say, we play a lot of random commander with people we don't know at conventions, and the number of times I see repeat commanders, very, very low, unless a commander is new or something. But even then, not really. So the most, how often do you play against the most popular commander in the format? Still one in every however many, 10 games or something.
Yeah, it's actually pretty infrequent. A lot of people have their pet decks, Yeah. It's some commander that I haven't thought about in 6 months or a year. And it's very cool to see. But I think that there's so many players floating around that even the 10 most popular commanders, you still don't see if you're going to play 20 games of pickup commander at a convention in a day.
Yeah, well, you see maybe 2 Goloses, maybe. Yeah. And they'll be completely different decks,
and
right?
They'll be completely different power levels, too.
They probably will. All right, so we can't talk about unban potential without discussing what I would consider the worst unbans and what other people are considering potential unbans. Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus. They just got banned. People are thinking that Wizards is going to unban them. I think that is kind of ridiculous. I would wager a guess that these cards don't get unbanned, and I think that it would be kind of problematic if they did.
I think that they will not get unbanned either, but we have to talk about the pros and the cons of whether they get unbanned, because, that's kind of what we're doing here. Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus are expensive cards, even to this day. They are still expensive because people are thinking they're going to get unbanned. If they get unbanned, people will be able to play with the cards that they recently spent money on or previously spent money on, and they invested a large sum of money into playing with those cards, and they are also able to, I guess, restore their decks to what they were playing at before the power level ban.
I will say I don't think Wizards is going to unban Nadu or Dockside. They pretty openly admitted Dockside was a huge design mistake in the Q&A. So I think they also said that about Jewel Lotus, but I think Dockside is very more clearly going to stay banned. And despite what I would personally want, which is probably a Nadu unban, I think Nadu is also going to stay banned. It's too easy to hate him, at least right now. So Mana Crypt and Jewel Lotus, the pros of unbanning is that I guess you bring some money back to people's wallets. Also in the same breath, the cons is everybody just sold or got rid of or, felt comfortable offloading all of their useless things for $30 instead of what it was worth before. Why unbanning them again is just absolute whiplash. Nobody will have any idea what's going on. They won't be able to know if they can trust bans in the future. I think it would destroy integrity of the ban list. It would also send the message that, hey, if you complain and harass people enough, you get what you want. We're going to unban those fast mana that you were crying about in the worst way possible. That, I think, is a terrible message to send also.
As you guys know, that there were death threats against the RC and CAG members overall because of these bans. And I think that with the message of unbanning, it's saying, yeah, threats do work. You can get what you want. I do also agree that there would be a lot of whiplash. There would be a lot of distrust within the community, which there was also a lot of distrust sowed with these bans coming out of nowhere. So I feel like people would be kind of lash out at both WotC at this point and the Commander RC even further because they are working with WotC at this point to figure out bans and unbans. I think that just because of the precedents that have been set, I don't think it's a good idea to unban Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus, regardless of what you think of the cards themselves.
Yeah, mark me down right now. Wizards of the Coast is inheriting this commander format that they didn't even necessarily want to do in the first place. It was basically handed to them by, not through anyone's control. Nobody was puppeteering, pulling strings on this. The last thing they want to do, the only thing actually they want to do, is not implode the entire format during the most tumultuous time in the format's history. So I don't think any of the cards that just got banned are going to be unbanned. I think that would be a terrible decision for every possible reason.
Yeah, I think so too.
I'm sorry you lost $30. It's not worth destroying the format over, and it's irrelevant to how fun these cards are in the format.
Yeah, I think that it would just break a lot of people's trust, and it would just make the future of Commander feel even more uneasy than it already does to those players who might have offloaded cards or who might have had these cards like bought prior. Just in general, I think that the best like way to go about this is to keep them banned, and if they want to unban them, which I sincerely hope they do not want to unban them,
Please.
that they do it in a far longer span. In
5 years from now, yeah. All right, so let's just do a quick recap on where we stand. Coalition victory, I know our feelings about this card have developed a lot. I think I am on the side of leaving it banned.
Maybe unbanned, but very only slightly.
Gifts ungiven, I think we're both unbanned.
Unbanned.
Let's unban that one. Primeval Titan.
Unban.
Unban, I think I'm slightly leaning towards unban as well on that, but I can understand no decision. Flash.
Unban.
Unban, baby. Biorhythm, I think I also said unban on this one.
Oh, God. Maybe slightly banned, but, like, again, very slightly.
Panoptic Mirror remains
Unbanned.
the easiest unban in the history of unbans. Lutri remains
Stay
the
banned.
easiest stay ban in the history. And let's free our boy Golos.
Free my boy Golos.
And leave Mana Cryptid Jewel Lotus banned. If you want to know what we would think if you had to reset the whole ban list and only ban 10 cards, which is an impossibly hard task, check out our Struggling for Our Lives right here.